St. Lucians. Some of you first knew me as a police officer. You got to know me better as a lawyer. Especially in that second capacity, I have learned much about life. Being a lawyer in a country where the majority cannot afford legal representation, I experienced firsthand the unequal personal satisfaction that comes from standing up, win or lose, for what you know is right. Even when the prejudiced majority would have you play it safe, turn your back, and walk away. But perhaps the most important lesson I learned from being a lawyer in St. Lucia is that you should never prejudge. In the same way that you cannot determine the quality of a book's contents from looking at its cover, so you cannot know the contents of a man's heart from looking at his clothes, or the size of his house, or the car he drives. The St. Lucian Constitution promises accused persons the presumption of innocence until proven guilty. And it was with that constitutional guarantee uppermost in my mind that I defended both the underprivileged, poor underdogs of our society, as well as other more fortunate who found themselves in need of someone to stand between them and a supposed jury of their peers. As a practicing lawyer, I made some fine, grateful friends, but I made very powerful enemies. Powerful enemies with state trappings at their disposal. It was the view of many misguided brothers and sisters, among them close relatives, that those accused of certain crimes ought to be denied legal representation, thrown to the dogs, locked away in cages, and forgotten. It did not occur to these otherwise fine, law-abiding citizens that what they wished for was not simply unfair, but was also absolutely unconstitutional, or that it was not in the best interest to deny others of their right to a defense. After all, who knows when it will be our turn to be unfairly declared guilty until proven innocent. Even as I made the case for our Constitution and human rights, even as I insisted that we should, in the best interest of justice for all, consider our less fortunate brethren innocent until proven guilty, not the reverse, it never occurred to me that I might one day find myself being judged guilty without even the suggestion of a fair hearing. Maybe I was subconsciously thinking that if I ever found myself in such a predicament, no big thing, I can take care of myself. After all, I am a lawyer. Well, you live and you learn. Today, I am a much wiser man. I've learned the hardest way that we are all, yes, every single one of us, regardless of status, vulnerable. Especially when the combined voice of our accusers is much louder, more sinister, more persistent than the voice of the accused. Over the last several days, I have had good reason to rethink whether I made the right decision when I entered politics back in 2006. True, I was persuaded by the Castries Central Constituency Group of the United Workers' Party, but the final decision was mine. It was well-intentioned, and I have never regretted it. But upon reflection, it seems the unread ominous signs were always all around me. It is no secret that from the moment I declared my candidacy in 2006 in the Castries Central by-election, I was vilified. Leading members of the opposition took vicious aim at me from their political platforms and from official perches hidden from public view. The snipers included a sitting Attorney General who was also my opponent for the Castries Central seat. A QC who was not only a frontline member of the opposition party, but also president of the Senate. All of them were well schooled in the devilish practice of using words as weapons for the destruction of reputations. Ever so careful to avoid correction, these lawyers cleverly insinuated that I was a money launderer, a woman batterer, a thief, a criminal, an unscrupulous land speculator, a drug trafficker, among other ills. They even whispered that I was involved in a murder under investigation by Scotland Yard. Several years after they initiated the smear campaign, my political enemies have offered no evidence, not a shred thereof, supportive of their outrageous insinuations. But this did not stop them from repeating their allegations to anyone who would listen, including visiting personnel from the American Embassy. Little did they know the evil that men do in the dark will one day be WikiLeaked. Predictably, they failed in their attempts at fooling all of the people all of the time. The people of Castries Central saw through their sheep's clothing and recognized them for what they are: ravenous wolves and lazy, unemployable opportunists who will stop at nothing to get what they want. The good people of Castries Central treated me fairly. They refused to pronounce me guilty until proven innocent. Maybe because many had themselves experienced injustices on one level or another, and those people treated me with respect. They afforded me my constitutional right to innocence until proven guilty. They handed me the special honor of representing them in Parliament and sent shockwaves throughout the political landscape. Not just once, but twice. And for that, I will be eternally grateful to the good people of Castries Central. With another election around the corner, the same desperate individuals, my sworn political enemies, have adopted the same tired methods that in 2006 had failed them. Somehow, they now expect to be embraced by the people of Castries Central, whom they neglected for 9 years so grossly that they were forced to issue a public apology. Now, more than ever desperate, my political enemies from the 2006 elections have been joined by a group of disgruntled former United Workers' Party members. They too have their special ambitions. Together with my older political enemies, who have always considered me the biggest stumbling block, the newcomers are determined, by whatever means necessary, wipe Richard Frederick out of the political picture. Ironically, at least one of them has been officially declared unworthy of public trust. His name is a blot on the books of local banks. His influence on Sojourn led to the Prime Minister's embarrassing "I was duped" admission that to this day remains an opener to a huge can of worms. This proven political and business failure was never satisfied with just his fair share of the national cake. Now he wants to control the whole bakery. And he is determined to use every trick in the book and by any means necessary to step on anyone who gets in his way. My enemies, both old and new, share a common goal: to discredit me in the eyes of the electorate and the wider world. It does not matter to them that their attempts at discrediting Richard Frederick, they are also giving St. Lucia an undeserved bad name. They will stop at nothing in their quest to rule the roost. The mantra is, stop Richard Frederick at all costs, and everything else will fall into place. Remember how I was arrested on suspicion of under-invoicing? A government minister treated like an escaped convict? A simple phone call would have been sufficient to make myself available for questioning. Instead, I was arrested on the street in broad daylight and was escorted all the way to the Grosley police station with TV cameras, reporters, and journalists in tow. The questions are, who tipped off the press and why? Well, let's hear the answer from the lips of the man who started it all. Listen carefully now as I quote from a WikiLeaks State Department cable. And remember, this was never ever expected that this cable would become public knowledge. So now I quote. Terence Leonard, Controller of Customs, still plans to charge Frederick with customs evasion as soon as he receives evidence that he requested under the U.S. St. Lucia Mutual Legal Assistance Treaty. Although a successful conviction might result in a fine, Leonard hopes that this will be enough to discredit Frederick and block his rise to power. Yes, Leonard hopes that this will be enough to discredit Frederick and stop his rise to power. So those who may have wondered about the motivation behind my arrest and everything else that has followed need wonder no more. The truth is out, direct from the horse's mouth. It has nothing to do with customs evasion. It has everything to do with discrediting Richard Frederick and blocking his rise to power. The latest blow from the American embassy has certainly hurt me. I now understand how the Commissioner of Police from Guyana felt. I now understand how the Minister from Jamaica felt. I now understand how the Venezuelan ambassador to the United States felt, all of them having their visas revoked. But I will survive. I will survive with the support of the people of Castries Central. I am still at a loss, though, as to the reasons for the revocation of my visas. Although I believe that what done in the dark will one day be preached from the housetops. Nevertheless, I have been advised to reserve further comment on this very disturbing turn of events until I am better pleased to speak. In the meantime, my political enemies are rejoicing. For them, the revocation of my visas is like manna from heaven. They see this as the vehicle by which they will regain power. There is blood in the water, and the circulating sharks are insatiable. Let them feast on the fruits of their smear campaign, while they still can. As for my beloved Castries Central constituency, you may rest assured I am innocent of all those allegations leveled at me by my political enemies. My faith that justice will prevail remains extremely strong. Again, I thank you for your support and pledge to continue serving you for as long as you want my services. In the meantime, and to spare my colleagues further distractions from their important work on behalf of the nation, during these especially difficult times, I have chosen to reconsider my earlier public statement and resign from the Cabinet of Ministers effective Monday, 26 September 2011. Meanwhile, I want to assure the Prime Minister and my other colleagues that my support for them and the United Workers' Party is never-ending. We must understand that the phoenix always rises from the ash. And in the most adverse of circumstances, good leaders always emerge. Remember Nelson Mandela? To my people of Castries Central I say, let not your hearts be troubled, as I have every intention of contesting the upcoming general elections. I am confident you would re-elect me to continue the unprecedented development of Castries Central that I started since the last 4.5 years. I thank you, Castries Central. I thank you, St. Lucia. Keep the faith, and may God's grace be with us in the days ahead.
Statement by the island's housing minister and also MP for Castries Central, Mr. Richard Frederick.